Bingo. And how about that? There's Jeannie Dougherty on the line with us here this morning. Jeannie is in Bethesda. Boy, that's a great place to be now today, isn't it, Jeannie?
Yes, it's a little chilly, though.
Yeah, well, it's 9 degrees here, so we're in the same neighborhood, and we just don't have an inauguration going on next door like you do this morning. My goodness gracious, so what a time it is to be where you are. Our visit with Jeannie presented by Marcus & Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row in the Best of Indiana County contest. Visit them online at marcusandmack.com. Jeannie is a financial strategist who teaches master classes on retirement readiness. We just had our guys from GCES talking about saving for retirement. But what do you do in retirement? How are some of the things that you do to set up your retirement and ease your burdens? Jeannie, we're hearing that renting your home as a retiree might not always be the best strategy. How do we know, Jeannie?
So that's a great question. The number one thing you have to know when it comes to choosing to rent or staying in your home is your health. Can you physically, emotionally, and mentally stay in the same home? Lots of older folks, once they retire, their families move away, so it makes it more challenging for the family to notice if you're not doing well. But if you fall down or anything like that, you can be all alone for days, and it does happen.
Yeah. Of course, a lot of people choose to rent in a particular community where there's single-level housing, homes built, especially they're usually smaller homes, and everybody around you is in the same boat that you are, so there's a bit of a network there for you.
Yes, and senior communities, for a lot of people, they love it because the homes are smaller, but they're often cheaper, and you get a lot of senior perks and discounts. So people do enjoy that.
Yeah, and that's probably a pretty good strategy. But Jeannie, let's talk specifically about renting versus owning as you are a senior citizen and as you are a retiree and your income is fixed.
That's true. If your income is fixed, there's always a risk if you decide to rent your home, depending on where you live. And it also can be a little bit more expensive to move if you decide to move to a cheaper or less expensive place. Mm-hmm. So what I always encourage people to do is to really take a look at the planning that they're doing with their financial advisor. Like, what is the long-term goal? You're going to need that money really for your health, not necessarily for your home.
If your rent increases, odds are that your income is not once you are a retiree, or certainly not at the pace that your rent increases. So that's a risk, isn't it?
Yes, very much so.
You have to figure that, therefore, into your budgeting?
You absolutely do, and I always recommend that you try to figure this out roughly 10 to 20 years prior than trying to do it in the middle. Because if the rent rates are very high, then you're going to be at the risk of, the market.
Yeah. And you said a couple of moments ago, a lot of people find themselves, when that happens, having to move. And moving when you're of a certain age and you don't have the kind of help that maybe you might have had when your circumstances were different in your younger days, that can be a real challenge.
Absolutely. You can't move the boxes yourself, and you're going to need help, and it just costs you more.
Yeah. Jeannie, unfortunately for many of us, when we reach our golden years and we get into retirement, a spouse is no longer with us. Somebody passes away, and somebody's left living on their own. Are we equipped as senior citizens and as retirees? Have we equipped ourselves adequately for living alone after all those years living with another person?
No. That's the simple, short answer. The answer is no, because we're so used to living with somebody. We know their routines. We're used to that. And when that disappears, we keep walking around thinking we're hearing and seeing them. And that's not a bad thing. That's just part of grief. But that can start to sway people on the outside, other family members being very concerned for your well-being. And some people, they don't do well. They stop eating. They stop taking showers, and their medication gets, a little lost. It's not consistent. So it's really important to understand that as much as you want to live alone, it may not always be the best answer.
That planning process you mentioned, that has to begin where it's better if it begin much earlier than probably we think about it. When we think about our spouse no longer being with us. We should be planning for that much earlier in life than probably we are.
Yes. What's great about some of the senior communities is that if you do lose a family member or your spouse, that they're more likely to come in and visit you and check on you and, spend the time to really be with you, versus family members are often very, very busy and can only stay for a short amount of time.
Yeah. Now, being a financial strategist, you can help us with this as well, trying to understand when you had two incomes coming in, and then you become on a fixed income with both of you, and one of those spouses passes away. The financial adjustments, they have to be factored in as well. What are some of the things that we should know as we make those considerations?
Well, a lot of times what happens is it's usually the husband that passes away first, although not always. And so there are concerns right away about how to bury somebody if that hasn't been planned. So then folks are sometimes looking for cremation or just reduced fee cremation. That may not have been the plan, but that's all they can afford. The other piece is that if you are making less money or receiving less money because your spouse has passed away, that will impact the quality and care of your home. So you may have to look into a different type of housing arrangement, either selling it or doing what's known as a reverse mortgage.
Oh, okay. And there was something that you said earlier that it becomes a part of this equation as well for many of us, particularly in the region in which we live here in Western Pennsylvania. The children have moved away, and where they might have been able to come over and be there in 10 or 15 minutes before, maybe that's not possible anymore because they're living in another state.
Exactly. And a lot of times when people are not doing well, what did they say on the phone? I'm okay.
Yeah, that's
and so
true.
It becomes harder to understand how they really are doing.
Yeah, they do. I wonder why that is, though. Don't you wonder?
Well, I mean, it's different, I think, as you age, what's really terrible. Like, as much as we may not always understand our older folks, our aging loved ones, they have survived and lived through things that were far worse than what you and I have.
Yeah.
So when they say they're okay, we just go like okay isn't okay, or like okay isn't I'm not in a desperate situation.
So, Jeannie, you teach master classes on retirement readiness. How does that format? I mean, do you have checklists that we have to go through, workbooks? How do you do it?
So that's such a great question. So it is a little different. I try not to do workbooks because what happens is, or checklists are a little easier, but workbooks in particular, they get lost. Mm-hmm. What I try to do is talk to people about what's absolutely necessary for your retirement and then look to see where the gaps are. Do you need to talk with a financial advisor? Do you need somebody who's like a handy pro expert to come in and evaluate your home, see if it's actually physically safe for you to live there? Do you need somebody who's an expert in, say, health and wellness? If you're on medication, you have multiple medical conditions so that they're managed to the best of your care and for your wallet. And then it also helps, like how do you talk to your family? I do those in the master classes, and how to, if you're an aging loved one, how to talk to your family members if you don't agree with them, so that there's more strategy and tools.
So it sounds like you really take it down to an individual level then with each of these folks.
It always is an individual thing. As much as we look at gross numbers, that doesn't always tell the story of the person who's in front of you.
Yeah. One big umbrella probably isn't the right approach, is it?
Right.
All right. So where do we learn more about you and about what you do, Jeannie?
Well, I have two websites. You can go to my name, JeannieDougherty.com. If that's too complex, that's okay. You can go to globalmoneycoach.com.
Globalmoneycoach.com.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Jeannie, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are you going to the inauguration at all? You going to do anything with that?
No, not at all. They canceled it.
Smart move, Jeannie. Hey, have a wonderful day today.
You too.
All right, there's Jeannie Dougherty with us here this morning on Indiana in the Morning. And yes, I did ask because, that last name is the same as our Doughertys here